This Restorative Justice Life is a production of Amplify RJ. Follow us on all social media platforms at Amplify RJ, sign up for our email list, and check out our website at amplifyrj.com to stay up to date on everything we have going on. Make sure you're subscribed to this feed on whatever platform you're listening on right now so you don't miss an episode. And finally, we'd love it if you left us a rating and review. It really helps us literally amplify this work. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to This Restorative Justice Life, the podcast that explores how the philosophy, practices, and values of restorative justice apply to our everyday lives. I'm your host, David Ryan Barcega Castro Harris, all 5 names for the ancestors, and I'm the founder of Amplify RJ. On this podcast, I talk with RJ practitioners, circle keepers, and others doing this work about how this way of being has impacted their lives.
Hey folks, I'm Elise, your producer, and today we are welcoming William Evans to the podcast. William Evans is the co-director for the Institute for Transformative Mentoring. He is also a restorative justice practitioner where he focuses on healing, developing, and leading systems that impact individuals on a journey to rebuild community, decrease violence, and incarceration. Along those lines, William is the founder of Neighborhood Benches, which is an organization increasing the presence of local neighborhood leadership to focus on youth violence and incarceration prevention. William elaborates on all of these initiatives and so much more in this episode, so without further ado, let's get into it.
William, welcome to This Restorative Justice Life. Who are you?
William.
Who are you?
Malik.
Who are you?
A black man.
Who are you?
A person.
Who are you?
An advocate.
Who are you?
A mentor.
And finally, who are you?
An individual that grew up in the Andrew Jackson houses located in the South Bronx that wanted to see something better for myself and those around me.
We're going to get into that story really quickly, but before we do, it's always good to check in at the beginning of these conversations. To the fullest extent that you want to answer the question right now, how are you?
I'm okay. I guess I'm okay. I'm surviving. And I'm exploring the things that I felt I needed to explore for some time now. Some of these things that I thought about exploring, I finally have the opportunity to explore them. And right now I'm feeling okay, right? I'm surviving, I'm feeling okay, and I'm feeling a little bit of what freedom feels like because I'm on my way there.
What I heard in there is that freedom gives you the ability to explore. What has that journey been like over the last however long you want to define it? Growing up the way I grew up, or being exposed to the things that I've been exposed to, it somewhat limited my thoughts and then stiffed my reach, right? And what I mean when I say that is that it was so many layers in which I had to surround myself with or wrap myself with, to the point where I've become this individual that can no longer move mentally, right? And for me, I thought that I was who I was then, not assuming I am who I am now. Yeah, there's a growth that all of us go through, right? We connected through someone, a mutual friend, Rochelle, and she talked about you as somebody who has been doing this work that we're defining as restorative justice well, in a really transformative way in your community, really impacting the community where you grew up. But that's work that you've been doing even before you knew the word restorative justice. So how did this work get started for you, in your own words?
For me, I started, well, I hate to say started, right? Because
I've been hitting these walls, these locked doors and these brick walls for some time now. Growing up in the Andrew Jackson houses in the South Bronx, it allowed me to experience some things in which I'm not so happy or so lucky for, but also the other part of it that I was able to experience is a life, the struggle, the unity, the support, and being able to know what it is to survive, right? And having those different experiences allowed me to open my eyes, rather encourage me to open my eyes and see the world for what it is, right? It's a space that's limited. It's a space with limited visibility, right? Like growing up in the Andrew Jackson houses didn't expose me to so much, but yet exposed me to so much, right? And the things that I was exposed to on a minimal level, right? Many of us know this as the as like the micro, right? This the just like level of understanding just to be in community, right? But never leaving those four corners and understanding that so much go on in your own neighborhood where you see war, you see hunger, you see poverty, you see oppression, you see these different things that so many of us are struggling with, right? To either overcome or just to be able to live within, that we can identify what's going on around the world just based on our own experiences within that four corners, right? But for me, understanding that at that point allowed me to maneuver and create different tactics that I can use just to survive. And school wasn't teaching me much of those survival tactics. I learned it from the neighborhood. But after losing so much and after being impacted from many directions, I had to figure out a way to where I could think outside the box, right? It wasn't until I started meeting other people from different neighborhoods to where I wanted to explore what 10 blocks away from my neighborhood looked like. It wasn't until I met an additional group of people to where I wanted to see what the next borough was like. And going through those different levels of relationship buildings also exposed me to similar things that I was going through in Andrew Jackson houses. And
Yeah,
you,
I was going
you,
to say, what are there a couple of those interactions or people that stand out that were helping you shift your mindset?
I would say yes, right? Because I always had, like, I have two sides of the family, like most people do, right? And my mother's side was always the promising side because that was the working and struggling side. Where my father's side, the ones that I knew on that side had a different type of survival to them. Those was the one who explored the streets, understood the streets, and survived. Right. So I was able to learn two different pieces of this pie. But the people that I had in my ear from both sides, whether it was my uncle, God bless her dead, Ruben, or my cousin Jevil, who was in my ear encouraging me to be a leader, encouraging me to do what I need to do to survive, showing me how to take care of family. If it wasn't them, it was my sisters and my cousins, the majority of females on my mother's side who was, being supportive of me and encouraging me to go back to school and do more with my life, knowing that I had these different skills and these different techniques that they really acknowledge on a different level. But after a while, after you take these different pieces and you put it all together, and you see how many people trust in you to be a better person, eventually you snap, right? And I don't mean snap as if lose it. I mean snap into place, right? And for me, it was those different things along the journey that helped me snap into place. Unfortunately, for me, it was me losing so much, right? Losing people, losing freedom, losing hope. Those different things created a mindset for me to want to do more.
Yeah. What did more mean for you? You talked a little bit about like being exposed to different things outside of what you already knew, but like what was your vision of more then?
I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be able to provide for my family, right? Provide for my sisters, my brothers, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. Because I saw so much of that, right? Like my grandmother was with all the flaws she could have as a Black woman growing up in this society that was geared towards keeping her down. She was able to survive and show me what it means to take care of a household, right? And then I have uncles and cousins who was like running the streets and knew that they was a part of the impact for which came with poverty and oppression, but they still allowed themselves to survive, you know. And it's just those moments where I can say to myself that these people educated me enough to want to be more than just a person that's standing on a corner, or a person that's going to just starve and allow the system to continuously impact me. More for me was being a breadwinner, being a survivor, being a person who would only look back because I'm coming to save somebody.
Was there a model for you that you were looking towards? Was there a person or an idea of like, that's who I want to be like?
My family was the only model that I saw. I couldn't see past the struggle,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not being able to see past the struggle made me want more, made me want to do better, right? It was many people in my family that achieved something, but there was always a struggle that came with it. And I just didn't want to have that struggle no more. Like I was just tired and burnt out and hurt, like over and over. I'm the same little kid that grew up in Andrew Jackson houses that lost his mother at the age of 9, right? Lost his father to the incarceration system at the age of probably 4, right? Knew what it was to sell drugs in your own community and and impact your own neighborhood, right, in a negative way. The same individual that thought that violence was the answer, right? But also played on the monkey bars and played on the basketball court, sat on benches and talked about my problems with my friends and my neighbors, but entire community helped me, right? An entire community made sure I went to school. An entire community made sure I ate. My grandmother could go down the hall and knock on the neighbor's door for some bread and some sugar and some canned goods, right? So these are the different things that I look back on. When I say more, I just knew that we all struggled, and struggling wasn't something I wanted to do because it hurt, right? Just because it don't show outside, it shows, it damn well shows inside. Struggle is hurtful and it's painful.
Yeah. So out of all of this, you are where you are now, and I don't know the entirety of that journey. One of the things that I'm curious about is when you were introduced to the words restorative justice.
Okay, so I was introduced to the words restorative justice probably 2000 and I would say 2016, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And I was attending Fordham University at the time, studying for my master's. Like I've heard the word be thrown around,
Mm-hmm.
but one brother by the name of Elmer sat me down one day to learn about the work that I was doing in community. And he immediately told me, like, I'm doing restorative justice work.
So pause. What was
Yeah.
the work that you were doing in community
Um,
before that point?
yeah. So I had launched an organization by the name of the agency, which is These Hands Educate a Generation Everyone's now called Youth Righteousness. And within that organization, right, I had a model called Neighborhood Benches, and it was designed to sit down on benches with different community members and have a conversation with them. I wanted to like inform people how easy it was to have a conversation with someone who probably needed the support of mental health or a counselor, but how easily you can engage a person in a conversation just sitting on a local bench. And through that process, you can support a person and have them better understand what's needed or how they can contribute to the work of community. And he immediately told me, like, no, you need to really talk more about that. Like, you really need to have your organization name Neighborhood Benches. And then he was telling me that by me returning to community to help community do better, right? I was not just doing great work, but I was also doing what you call restorative justice. And I asked him to explain it to me, and then he walked me through the whole process over about a month or two, and just helped me understand that just the idea that I know I've harmed the community, and for me to return to that community and then make amends with the people who I have impacted in such a way is enough example of what restorative is. And he said, because it wasn't no legal system that got me to that point, and I'm doing it on my own, that alone is restorative justice. And he explained to me, restorative justice has nothing to do with the legal system putting in place what you need to correct an action. And from that point forward, that was like, I prided myself on making sure I returned to the neighborhoods that I've impacted in such a negative way, and restoring what I took away from it. And that was humanity and mentorship.
Yeah. There are a lot of ways that people can give back to their communities, be a part of their communities. What was it about starting those conversations between folks that really made you think that, like, no, this is what would have helped me. This is what is needed in this moment.
I remember, I remember growing up when we used to wait to get on the basketball court, right? And it could be so many things going on around in the neighborhood, but we were all gather on the benches, all ages, and just start conversations about what went on in school, what happened at home, what may have happened the day before, whether it was violence, gun violence, or just domestic violence, or someone sleeping on a bench, or someone starving, somebody drinking. We used to have all of these different conversations, including who've suffering from a sickness in our home. And we shared that information without any strings attached, without judgment. And we built a relationship off of that. But at the same time, knew how to support one another because we all was going through something. And I knew that was missing from my neighborhood as well as many others, many other neighborhoods that I've explored on my journey. And I wanted to bring that back because that is what allowed me to understand that I can contribute more to the work that I've been doing, whether I was on Rikers Island doing work, whether I was incarcerated on Rikers Island, whether I was working at different organizations like Fortune Society, community learning schools. I knew that there was something that I had to offer my neighbor that was not being offered on a regular basis from different organizations or different people. And I wanted to return to my neighborhood to offer that same type of support that I received, because it was all of those different things that had me acknowledge who I am in the long run and believe in myself in that same instance. I think without that, I would have had a difficult time getting to where I am now. It's like somebody had to plant the seed. Right. And it was different neighbors catering to me that planted the seed in different ways.
And I just always remind myself of that. I remember my sisters told me this, reminded me of this at Thanksgiving. She said, everyone contributes, right? There's no way to give credit just to one person. Everyone contributes, right? And as I look back, it's everyone contributes, whether it's negative or positive. Everyone contributes, and if you learn enough, you could extract what you need. But just to even dig a little deeper, right? It wasn't until like I got shot 16 in the same projects that I spoke of. And I dropped out of school because the school wouldn't give me an elevator pass. Right, I was a bright young kid in school. Right, I got selected to all of the schools that I've picked. Right, and you only was able to pick 12. I picked like 14. But because I got shot, first I got arrested at 15. I got wrongfully arrested after leaving one of the buildings from packing bags and making a delivery. Then a year, and as a result of that, because it's housing told me I had to leave. Housing wrote my grandmother a letter, said I had to leave because I had an open case, which was a drug case. But although the case was dismissed, I still had to leave. Right. So that led me to the streets. Within that year of being in the streets, I got hit in my neck with a ricocheting bullet. Right. And as a result of that, I needed an elevator pass while I was going to art and design. They wouldn't give me an elevator pass. And after hearing it so much, knowing that I have staples in my neck to the side, and I couldn't walk up 3 flights of steps without me ripping my neck or like my neck hurting even more. Because even till this day, I'm still like numb on the side, right? So you can imagine what it felt like going to school, and then just feeling out of place. So I eventually dropped out. And it wasn't until I went to art and design where they showed me, not art and design, the College of New Rochelle, right? My sister encouraged me to go back. That's a school that they graduated from. And they encouraged me to go back to school. So eventually I went back to school, and the school introduced me to something called a Life Arts Project. It's where you're looking at the literature from these different books, these different studies, and you're connecting your personal experiences to it. And for me, it was so easy, but for some reason, I've never thought that you can connect what's in a book that's based on research and based on storytelling, like based on these real life experiences. Like I've never thought that you can actually take data, take stories, take research, and connect it to your real life experiences. I always thought these people was long gone, far fetched, but that allowed me to open my eyes to see these pivotal moments that you asked me about recently. Like it allowed me to go back in time and identify different pieces of my life that I was able to overcome and work towards something. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized I can do more and I'm going to do more.
Yeah. I mean, what you shared a lot. One of the things that stands out to me is, even as you were encountering the criminal legal system and the different branches that like prevented you from, of government that prevented you from staying housed, right? The different systems that prevented you from continuing your schooling, right? There were relationships that helped you keep going. There were people who stayed in your life to, continue to support you, encourage you to those different places. And I'm thinking about how, neighborhood benches is a way to help others continue to stay connected to people in their community, because I think we're hard pressed to find people who understand someone's story like that and say like, well, all right, good luck. No, like when people know those stories, like people want to help. Cheryl Graves is one of my mentors in this work. The first episode of this podcast, for those who haven't taken a listen, she talks about how, restorative justice can be boiled down to, how are you and what do you need? And then of course being responsive to that need, but like it really just takes the time to listen to somebody's story, like, and we're talking about simple ideas, but like, listen deeply, listening reflectively, listening to understand instead of just like to respond, but then figuring out how people can be helped, how can people be supported, whether they've caused harm or have been harmed, or are contributing members to the community in some other way. Because to your point, like I think you said, your sister said, like, we all have a role to play in all of this. I'm thinking about how, the neighborhood benches initiative, like, isn't just you. You created, you helped create a team of folks who have taken this work on. Tell me about them. How did you bring them into the work?
Neighborhood journey is one I could never forget or like shake off, right? Because the development of neighborhood benches was me finding peace, right? I said to myself, if I want to fully heal, right? This is at the height of the talk of restorative justice and healing. I knew that I had to go back to where it all started, right? So once I came up with this idea and I learned more about the restorative justice work, I resigned from my work at the Fortune Society, leading a group of discharge planners that I was working on by Rikers Island. And I said, I need to go back to where it all started. Like, I did not feel whole, right? Being impacted by these different systems, being incarcerated for like 11 months, well, being held and detained for 11 months, 4 days, visiting this same place when I was a teenager, knowing various people that went through it, being impacted by gun violence and by poverty and oppression, these different things, right? The social welfare system as a whole, I wasn't feeling whole. So I wanted to go back to where it all started. And that led me to back to Andrew Jackson houses after leaving for over like 15 years. And as I said to myself, I need to revisit this neighborhood and plant myself back in the neighborhood and see what I could find out about what's missing. In the process of me doing that, I had different friends and different associates and different people that watched me along my journey talk about the different things that I wanted to do in life, reach out to me. And these individuals reached out to me because they wanted to experience what I was experiencing. They wanted to really fully understand what it was that I was doing and why I was doing it. So in the process of me healing myself, different people tapped into that journey and said, I too want to do what you are doing. And what I discovered was that I had a number of followers who was also supporters. So what I designed was a way for them to shadow me in the process of me doing the work. And that was me going to meetings to locate funding to do the work. That was me going to meetings to establish partnerships to get the work done. That was me going to organizations looking for young people that I could mentor. That was me meeting with different parents from the neighborhood in which I came from to talk with parents, talk with Tenant Association. That was me just making sure people are buying into what it is that I wanted to do. Because I knew I had to have community buy-in. And throughout those different conferences, throughout those different conversations, throughout that different walk through the neighborhood, there was a team of individuals behind me that wanted to learn more about what it was that I was doing after just seeing me talking with a group of kids on the court for about a month, right? But they've started hearing about other things when I'm doing interviews with different people about the importance of mentoring and like establishing partnerships. So they wanted to know more about why I'm doing it and how can they be a part of it. So in that process, they joined me and then they just shadowed me in the field. And these individuals also brought different things to the table, whether it was ideas, whether it was strength, whether it was different views. And we were able to build as a team and challenge each other's thoughts on different ways that we could have an impact on community. So in each one of those individuals are doing things now, right? These are some individuals who've never had a supervisory role at their job that they've been at for 10 years. Some people never worked directly with young people because they always thought about doing construction, or they may have thought about doing retail. And different people join us on this journey and establish different skills that they're now using today. Like each person that ever joined neighborhood benches as as a student, right, part of our leadership development team, is now doing something they have never done in their life in regards to employment, right? And I think that's huge because we always talked about how people overlooked us, right? How people always talk about how they want to help us but never see us. And seeing somebody is very important. Is vital to our growth, right? Because if we feel as though we are not acknowledged, then we are no longer required in this work to further develop someone in their skills.
One of the things that really stood out is that, these are things that take time, and these are things that are built on relationships, right? You talked about, the impact of you spending time with these kids on a court for a month,
Yes.
right? The impact of you, the people in your life who have watched your journey, wanting to go on that journey with you, learn more because of the relationship that you've built over years. When people think about like, oh, I want to start this restorative initiative, oh, I want to make this community change, and I'm gonna like go out and change the world tomorrow, right? There are tasks that you might be able to get done in a short period of time, but like there has to be this acknowledgement that this work uh, takes time. We're dealing with years and years, centuries, if you will, of these oppressive systems in these places, and through the relationships, through people bringing their unique gifts, like that's how we're going to like slowly dismantle these places. Are there a couple people who specifically like you were like, oh, we wouldn't be here without this person doing this thing that you want to shout out?
Yes. So I would definitely shout out Elmer, because I definitely know we wouldn't be here if he never introduced me to restorative practices. I would definitely shout out Daniel Savio, who's always been on the ground. That's one individual that watched us out the window and said, I'm going to do what it is you guys are doing. I would shout out Renee Brown, who is the neighborhood benches director of education. I met her at Fortune Society, and she came with like over 20 years of experience working with young people inside and outside the juvenile justice system. She's leading us through like different partnerships with different universities. James Young, who had incredible strength and incredible knowledge around gang violence. Um, then I would I would look at like our partners, um, Tamara Forte, who believed in us enough to like really support us with like gathering young people to like mentor. Carl Maza, who's a chair, who's a social work chair at Lehman College, who like sat in on one of the conferences before we actually started doing like programs, and heard my journey and heard my team talk and just like provided our first experience with the neighborhood and school partnerships. I will also shout out guys like Glenn Martin, who encouraged and challenged me throughout the process of this work, just letting me know that the work is never going to be easy, and you will hit many more brick walls. And also Ray Thibault, who took me on as an intern, as a volunteer at Fortune Society when I first started knocking on doors to get experience, hands-on experiences with this work. And then those who are around me now, the Restorative Roots Collaborative, I meet with them like every Friday, and like the knowledge that they share is very supportive towards the journey that I'm on. My team at the Institute for Transformative Mentoring, who's also restorative practitioners and mentors as well. And then my family and the people from my neighborhood who are challenging me every day with like keeping me grounded in the various events that's going on, and challenging my thoughts and my memories for how I will transform community in this day and age. So yeah, like so many people contributes to like where it is neighborhood benches is at, and where I am as an individual, right? Because it's one thing for neighborhood benches to be one place, but then it's another thing for me to be where I am today.
Yeah, for the people who don't see the visual, right? You're sitting in front of a background that says "healed people heal people," right? And those people, like, there has to be this acknowledgement that every one of us is responsible for making choices towards our own healing, but we can't deny
Yeah.
the fact that so many people have contributed to where we are, and we're able to do the work that we're doing. You mentioned a couple of other orgs while you were shouting those out, both ITM and the Restorative Roots Collective. Would love to hear you talk about each of those individually. Which one do you want to share on first?
Okay, so I touched on the Restorative Roots Collaborative. So the Restorative Roots Collaborative is a group of individuals that's like researching the impact of trauma, historical trauma on our work, right? Like how is this impacting us individually, right? As we're doing the work, right? But also collectively as we're trying to support others. And these are some dynamic individuals. You have Rochelle, who like started the group and reached out to us. Then you have Sky, you have Nicole, you have El Tomei, you have Lusa, you have, I think I said Michelle already. You have Elena, you have Michaela. And these individuals, every time we meet, they're bringing something incredible to the table that helped me to reflect on who I was and who I am, right? They're as a group, we're having conversations about what's not going on in the field as people talk about restorative justice, right? How it's being commercialized, right? And how it's not being authentic to its true nature and its true purpose. And how do we practice not falling into that category, right? Like, how do we uplift each other? How do we raise the voices of those on the ground doing the work who are also impacted individuals? How do we uplift those voices and support those voices? I think that's the check and balances for me. Every week I have a group that would allow me the space to review my check and balances. And I think that's powerful in this field. That's something that's needed, because after you read from the book and you put it into practice, someone needs to help you dot your I's, cross your T's. And that's the Restorative Roots Collaborative.
Yeah, and shout out to Rochelle. We're thinking about figuring out a way to get a representative group of y'all on to share a little bit more about the work and the research that y'all are doing. We will link to the paper that you put out in the show notes. But you also talked about ITM and the Institute of Transformative Mentorship, mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
you talked about your upbringing and the need that you had for mentorship like this. What does the ITM bring to community?
Yeah. So first, let me tell you how I got there. Right.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a strong believer after going through so many organizations, being referred there, and being part of staff. I realized that many organizations send individuals places without actually experiencing it themselves. So as a result of them not experiencing it, when an individual come back to share negative things, even positive things, we are not familiar with the place enough to reflect on it or to encourage them to like go back or continue or make a different choice. And for me, my experience with individuals that we would probably counsel or talk to was always sharing these negative um, 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 like this negative feedback after their experiences going being referred to certain places. So when I designed neighborhood benches, I said any place that we send anyone, I want to go there first, right? And I made that a part of my practice to go to these places first. So as James was like the second behind me, James Young, I said I would like for him to also experience what this school is offering, right? So he would. I always encourage my entire team, whether they were shadowing me for a little while or not. I would always encourage them to take up other trainings, but we will look at the different trainings that we can take up, and I would join them on that process so they can see that we are doing this together, and you are not just doing it for yourself. I'm also doing it for myself as well. So in the process of referring James to this course that offered 3 college credits and a better understanding around restorative practices, healing, and unpacking trauma, I wanted to go through the process and see what it's like. Like I didn't want him to return to me and say, "Nah, I don't want to go there no more," because it wasn't right for me. It wasn't a fit. So I went on that journey with him. So we was a part of cohort 6, and in the process of being the best practitioner you can be, you have to be one with yourself, and you have to understand healing. You have to be able to be restorative, right? So part of me going to different trainings with my team was me being restorative, but also learning along the way. So when me and James registered for this course, we first went to Murphy Institute to enroll into a leadership program, but then we like ran across another training organization, which was the new school, right? The Institute for Transformative Mentoring. So there is where I learned the process of healing, right? Because they walked you through this process to where you not only just understand the circle methodology, you not just understand trauma-informed care, how to unpack trauma, how to heal, how to build a network of individuals who have similar experiences to be your allies. They also educated you on how to facilitate these same things in your own community with your own people. So as me and James went through that, we've we better understood what we was impacted by and how we was moving in the world with this high level of traumatic experiences that we never got the chance to unpack. And around a campfire, we all had the opportunity to share our stories. It was like 22 of us. We all shared our stories and shared our journeys and how it impacted us and what it is that we are doing now to like heal from that traumatic experience. And when we graduated, it was like the best feeling ever. I remember at the time when I participated in that program as a student, I was enrolled in a PhD program. And I removed myself from the PhD program mentally because I was like, I have to fully invest in this because this is really a part of healing. Like I'm revisiting places and reflecting on things that have been impacting me for many years that I really didn't identify with. So that experience allowed me to to dig deeper into the healing process. And then when we graduated, I just knew like this was something that I had to be a part of. And when the opportunity presented itself and the director left from that organization, I applied. And I said, this is something that I have to bring back to my community, that I have to be a part of me, and I have to represent for those who I know that would benefit from this program. So the Institute for Transformative Mentoring is this dynamic training organization that provide professional development, focus on centering on healing for credible messengers, which are the individuals in the field working with young people around gun violence prevention, and different practices for them to be trauma-informed care practitioners as well. At the Institute for Transformative Mentoring, you have 3 different programs. You have the adult program, which is the Transformative Mentoring. We refer to it as 1500. It's a 3 college credit course where different organizations that's working around the career violence model, the crisis management team, will send their staff to go on to take this course to better inform them on the practices, and then leave as better practitioners in the field. Then you have the youth program, where it's the self-care and empowerment, right? Where you're training young people between the ages of 18 to 24 how to be circle keepers and restorative justice practitioners as well, who could then go out and to the field as a part of their training and facilitate circles at different organizations. And then you have the fellowship program, which is the Institute for Transformative Mentoring public policy fellowship, which is offered to graduates of the 1500 course to re-engage in the program with a focus on public policy analysis, and encouraging them to have the ability to advocate on a different level.
Yeah, there's so many people who can tap into this work. We're recording this conversation about a month and a half before it's going to air. I know you're wrapping up a cohort now. When is the next time that? So it's credible messengers, people who are working in cure violence, policy folks, and young people. How can folks get involved? And do they have to be in the New York area?
Yes, they will have to be in a New York area, but we also design trainings that we can facilitate to those who are not living in New York City. We have been doing that for some time now. So we're now wrapping up G10 for the Transformative Mentoring 1500 course, and we're offering now that the applications are open now for G11. So this is the 11th cohort of students that's being offered the training. So they can go to the Institute for Transformative Mentoring at the new school and find our application there where they can apply or refer someone who's identified as a credible messenger, which are those individuals who are identified by the community members as a leader, and someone with lived experience. The fellowship is being offered now. It's just launched on the 23rd, but the next one will be offered in 2022 during the summer.
And for people who want to learn a little bit more, we'll definitely have the Institute for Transformative Mentoring linked in the show notes below. We're coming towards the end, and I want to get to the questions that we ask everyone on the podcast. For you, define restorative justice.
Restorative justice is the process in which you need to transform yourself and community. You should know within yourself if you are doing something wrong to yourself or to another person, and be willing and able to restore what it should be if you did not cause harm to yourself or someone else. For me, what that looked like was everything that I know I did wrong, I had to revisit it and correct it. And if that means that I impacted someone in a negative way, I had to go back to that individual without the support of the criminal justice system and make amends with that individual. And together we talk through what it is that we need to do better in order to see a better day tomorrow. So for me, restorative justice is identifying the issues that may have impacted you or impacted someone, identifying a role that you have played with impacting yourself or someone else, and making amends by redefining what it should look like without you harming someone else.
There's so much about that relationship with yourself, doing the internal work that gets skipped by a lot of folks. Not by the listeners of this podcast, though, because we all know restorative justice is about relationships. First relationship you have is a relationship with yourself. As you've gone on this journey, what has been an oh shit moment, like a moment that you made a mistake or messed up or would have done something differently, and what did you learn from it?
Trusting anyone and everyone just because they speak the words restorative justice. Making sure that I understand that everyone is not on the same journey as I am, and therefore I have to be able to do the work without impacting someone in a negative way, but being able to understand how I can support them in the process.
Specifically thinking about a national conversation about restorative justice, right? Those words get thrown around, and people mean different things when they say them.
Yeah.
And I think almost everybody who's using those words does it with good intention.
Yes, true indeed. However, the way I've learned of restorative justice is that it's done without the criminal justice system. And I ran across too many people that believe it needs to go through the criminal justice system before it actually can happen. And I remind people every day that this is something that we can do alone. This is something that we've been doing alone. I remember having fights in the neighborhood where someone from the community would bring me and that individual together and ask us what happened, what's going on, have us acknowledge how we hurt one another, and had us shake or have us hug and take us back to our parents. And in many cases, our parents will have the same conversation, right? But people believe that we need that we need the criminal justice system involved in order to get it right. And for me, that's like an oxymoron, right? Like we cannot mistaken the process in which the process came. Right? We have to know that we do not need law enforcement or the criminal justice system to identify when and how we are hurt and what we need to feel acknowledged and restored.
I know there are folks who are listening to this who are actively a part of the criminal legal system and are trying to do good, and sit with that statement and work through that. I also know that there are people like yourself who work for other organizations and institutions, and I'm not saying that the New School or the Institute of Transformative Mentoring is this, right? But I do think that there is a risk of institutionalizing this way of being, right? The way that this process, this way of being, gets co-opted into just like, oh, these are the buzzwords that we use at this organization, and within the context of an organization, we don't really do the work. You see this with restorative justice in schools all the time, right? Where these organizations are replicating the punitive way that the criminal legal system operates, and that's the world that we live in, and that's the tension that we have to sit with as we're trying to grow these things beyond just people who know each other in the neighborhood, right? Because that's one thing, when you have those relationships that you with people you see every day. But when you're talking about people where those relationships aren't there, like, we do rely on systems. I don't have the easy solution for that, but it's just something that I'm always sitting with intention.
Yeah, you know what what else that you bring that up, right? It also connects to what I just spoke of, right? That oh shit moment, right, is also me acknowledging that people 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 commits to a 9 to 5 and not a lifestyle. See, I committed to a lifestyle, and that lifestyle is being restorative, right? And whichever way is going to come is going to be restorative, right? Like it's part of being solution driven and being accountable and being responsible and 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 having the ability or the willingness to learn, right? Many people are set in their ways. They believe that one way is only in the best practice, and therefore continue with that. But I realized that people are not doing this as a lifestyle; they're doing it as a 9 to 5. And in many cases, that's my oh shit moment, where I'm like, oh shit, people are not doing this because this is a better way of living. They're doing it because it's a 9 to 5. And I always tell someone, like, we have young people or individual for a couple of hours a day. If it's not about a lifestyle, it's about applying a Band-Aid to a cut that's been cut 1,000 times, right? Like that same cut healed 1,000 times, but it also been sliced 999 times, right? So we are just adding a Band-Aid to it. We have to promote this as a lifestyle and not just promote it as a 9 to 5, because there are too many people who are programmed out and tired of programming. And therefore, when the idea of restorative justice come about, they are just assuming it to be another program if it's not considered a lifestyle.
Honest question. There are always going to be people who take this learning and think about it as just the thing that they do at their job. Should we be teaching? And people don't go on a straight linear path on like learning this work. How much of this work do we give to people who are learning it within the context of their job, and how much of this do we like say, no, if you're about this, you're going to come and find it and learn from elders? Because like, as I'm growing Amplify RJ and building training programs, right, building ways of teaching people, there's this consciousness that not everybody who's going to take this learning is going to apply it in these ways that are lifestyle, right? So like, do we even teach it?
You have to genuinely want it. Like we can teach all day long, but if people are not fully accepting or receptive of what it means to be restorative, then they are not going to live it, right? And that's where we would run up against a wall and say to ourselves, do we want to, right? The same question that you asked just now. Do we want to teach it, or do we want to apply it as a lifestyle, right? And we want more people to apply it as a lifestyle. So therefore, they'll continuously learn the different elements that they need to not only just heal themselves, but help other individuals in the process towards healing.
So I know you have, within ITM, I know you have the 15 piece, and then you have the fellowship, but not everybody who goes through that 15 piece is in the fellowship. Like, how do you continue to stay in relationship or like keep track or like, I know there's no way to guarantee that people are like applying it to their lifestyle, but what are the mechanisms that you have in place?
So we have
we have even before the pandemic, we always have this monthly check-ins to where it may be movie nights, it may be gatherings, different things offered every month, right? Currently, we just established like Facebook pages where we raise different questions and include different activities. But everything that's being offered is around the work itself, right? Whether it's a documentary that's like highlighting the transition, or it's a documentary about how we've been impacted in some type of way. So everything is intentionally designed to keep you updated and reminded of where we are now, right? And I think it's important that these teachable moments become something that's regularly offered if we want people to adapt different styles, right? And apply different strategies towards restorative practices as it is a part of the healing process, right? Because we will face different challenges all the time. But if we open eyes only one way, then we will only get one practice. We need to continuously offer something that can open a person's eyes as it is a challenge, and allow them to adjust and reapply strategies that they learn as a practitioner in order to move the needle forward, right? And collectively, as we contribute into these different spaces, that's the way that we are going to continue to grow. So at the Institute for Transformative Mentoring, we're reaching out to different people using social media, using ongoing trainings, advanced classes like the public policy, the youth programming, and the placements. Even with our youth program, after these young people are trained, we're looking to put them under different organizations that need the work done, right? Who probably know nothing about restorative justice or the circle keeping process, but we're training people to place them back at different organizations or their own organization who may not have these practices in mind, and we're allowing people to then amplify their voices and uplift the strategies at those organizations. So every month we're trying to engage with everyone about something, whether it's us inviting them to the graduation, inviting them to a movie night, inviting them to the public policy, inviting them to work with some young people, but we're inviting them and engaging them in any way that we can. Just so they can know that we're still here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the relationships, right? There's got to be some kind of accompaniment and continual presence, right? To continue to see this work grow.
The practice never stops, right? And it evolves over time. And we have to readjust our own practice in order to get the best out of it so someone else can learn from it, right? So we may be teaching RJ as one big circle right now, but eventually we will have to break that circle down into 10 other circles just to be able to apply it to different groups and different matrix, just so people can then learn from it. And after it becomes like a household name, right? Then people will then start applying it to every part of their life. Like, for example, like you have kids that may go into a store and steal out of the store a bag of chips and a juice, right? And the person with the practitioner mind would then stop that child and ask that child why, right? And then probably find out that child is hungry, the parents are not around, right? And then in that process of that conversation, we'll have a conversation with the parents about how they're impacted by the various systems, right? So that's a practitioner mind that would then dig that deep enough to make sure that child is not placed in a criminal justice system or foster care just because that individual wanted to take a bag of chips and the juice. Meanwhile, still pay the store for what it is that they may lose, or have that store owner feel as though, you know what, I better understand now, and I am now going to give that young kid something to do, or just give them the bag of chips in them juice, right? Because I do not want the criminal justice involved. And these are things that's been going on when I was a younger kid, right? But we want to be able to break this down enough to where it's a easier to where it's an easier transition for individuals to leave the punishment mindset alone and look at being more restorative.
Yeah, it's not just about giving people the tools, as
Yeah,
we've said. It's about
exactly.
like how do you apply it? And there's no perfection in any of this, but we will get there with continual practice.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man, that went a lot longer. This is supposed to be somewhat of a speed round, but we're gonna keep pushing through those last questions. You get to sit in circle with four people, living or dead. Who are they, and what is the question that you ask the circle?
Can it be six people?
Sure.
Okay, so it would be my uncle Ruben, my cousin Gerald, my uncle Paul, my grandmother Jessie, my mother Patricia, and my best friend Joel. Um, what I would ask them, how am I doing, and what can I do for them?
How would you answer that question for yourself right now? How would you? How
Um,
are you doing? And what are you doing for them?
I'm not okay, but I'm here. I'm present. Um, and what I'm doing for them is making sure that we have a better world to where our people would never have to experience the things that they've experienced.
How do you think their answer would differ from that?
Their answer?
Yeah. Well, like what you could do for them.
Oh no, it's challenging because each one of them have been impacted a different way and lost their life similar but different ways. But the more I learned, um, not only just how to be restorative, but as I learned about the four aggravating factors that we teach through the Institute for Transformative Mentoring, out of a book called the Child That Hurts, something like that. I can't get the right title right now, but we like teach the four aggravating factors, um, which is evaluation, um, humanize, dehumanized laws, um, erosion of community, and rage. And as I look at that, and then I look at the social determinants of health, I have a better understanding for how I lost each one of them. And I look at it as if I can save some people in those same neighborhoods where these individuals lost their life and I lost myself, I believe I'm contributing to a better place, right? And supporting individuals to be better individuals. But I think the response could be different for each one of them, because each one of them experienced something through a different means. And I know for sure we'll have something different to tell me.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really heavy. That's a lot of responsibility that I hear you feel like you have to take on. When I hear you say that, um, and like I'm projecting like what I'm feeling into this, like this overwhelm of responsibility to do all of this. And when you say like I'm okay, I'm surviving, I know that they also want you to thrive and not just survive. And so encouragement mostly to myself as I'm talking to you, but like find the ways to get beyond survival because you've got a long road ahead.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
much more to do.
yeah. Like thanks for saying that as well. Um, and I always look at the journey to how I started life and like how I get to where I am now, right?
Mhm.
Many years ago, I wouldn't have never thought of being a college graduate. I would have never thought of starting a nonprofit organization that have saved hundreds of lives. I would never have thought of being entering the Echo and Green competition and being one of 34 people selected out of 2,500 plus people from around the world. I would have never thought of being a co-director at an organization that's under a school at the new school. I would have never thought of receiving the awards that I received and set on the platforms that I've set on to talk about the work. And I think those are great accomplishments, right? And I know, just like you said, I got so much more to offer and so much more to achieve. But I want to always remind myself that we still have work to do, right? Like we have work to do no matter how we see it. And that's the sad part because we was wrapped in so many layers of oppression. By the time I dug out of it, I was already well in my 30s, right? And if that had not been the case, I would have been where I'm at many years ago, right? As well as the individuals that I run across. So we are practicing this as a lifestyle and making sure that we are healing ourselves enough to where we can take this weight off of our shoulders and grow each time we grow. We're dropping a brick, right? And that brick is making us much more lighter to reach the level that we need to reach. But I know that I have much more work to do. And I only identify it as survival because where we are, to me, it's just that, right? Like we are surviving, right? We are thriving, but we are also surviving, right? Every day is never promised to us as human beings, but it makes it that much harder being a Black person, a Black man, living in these conditions, in this environment.
Like there's this acknowledgement that like it's never going to quote unquote be enough to solve all the problems, save the world,
Yeah.
reverse 400, 500 years of white supremacy on this continent and other forms of oppression. But it's the work that we're charged with, and like I don't know how to put a light spin on that.
Mhm.
I'm curious, like, is there a mantra or an affirmation that you tell yourself that keeps you going that you want to leave with people here?
Yes. Um, I always say I want to be legendary, right? And being legendary means doing the work, right? Practicing what you preach. But I would stand by like what you see behind me, right? Heal people, right? And that's because I already know hurt people, right? And I'm not in this space to hurt people. So I will stand by the words heal people.
Two more questions. Who's one person I should have on this podcast? And before you answer, you have to help me get them on.
I give you Shams the Baron, the homeless hero. He have many articles. He works with neighborhood benches, and he said through that process, he got his mojo back, right, to do the work all over again. He used to do the work in many forms. Very bright brother. Um, um, yeah, Shannon DeBarra. He advocates for the homeless, and trying to impact the voices of the homeless people to end homelessness. And he been through it all. He been through it all. He used to practice. He used to practice with the Islamic community. He been around since like Larry Davis been around. Um, like he got so many, he got stories among stories. And he's definitely an inspiration. I don't know how I left him out, but he watched me grow up, and he helped me. He was the first person that ever set me down to review the Quran and the Holy Bible together. So he compared the two and actually opened my eyes to what it means to compare and contrast.
Last question. And we've talked about a bunch of different places that you're doing work and how folks can support, but how can people support you and your work in the ways that you want to be supported?
I think they can acknowledge the importance of community and return to that place where it all started. I would like more people to really look at the place where it all started and find a way to get back there or get back there.
And if people want to learn more about the neighborhood benches, and if they want to learn more about the transformative mentoring, we'll have those in the show notes below. I love it when, folks like you, like, yes, like do this work from your heart. And that's what supports our community. And there are all these ways that you can get plugged in exactly to what you're doing. Yeah. So thank you so much. Anything you want to leave the people with?
Look at our work day to day on Instagram, Neighborhood Benches. Look at our work at both neighborhoodbenches.org, neighborhoodbenches.info. Look at the work that's being done with the Institute for Transformative Mentoring, as it is a part of my healing process, my healing journey, as co-director and as an alum. And keep your eye out for the work. If you want resources and you want a community of support, you cannot just visit those sites, but also visit the Restorative Roots Collaborative, because there you will have a unique group of individuals that's going to support you and plug you into a larger community of practitioners.
Beautiful. Well, again, we'll have all of those linked below. Thank you so much, William, for your time, wisdom, and stories. Everyone else will be back with another conversation next week. Till then, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, William. Healed people heal people. Say it with me. Healed people heal people. Thank you so much, William, for dropping that gem. I think it is such an important reminder to us that healing yourself can help you, in turn, have the capacity to heal others. Love and healing can be passed on, but it's important to remind ourselves that we also deserve those things too in order to be able to pass them on to others. William also reminded us that restorative justice is a wonderful avenue to healing. But in order to do that adequately, we need to seek restorative justice not as a one-time thing, not as a workshop, not as a 9-to-5, not as just a podcast, but as a way of life. Seeking restorative justice as a way of life is not just putting a Band-Aid on the situation with temporary relief, but it's instead seeking the root causes of the harm and creating lasting and true healing. If you're hoping to make restorative justice a bigger part of your life, make sure to check out all of our other episodes on this restorative justice life, and check out our Instagram, amplify.rj, where we often share a lot of information about upcoming workshops and intensives, as well as exclusive podcast content from all of your favorite restorative justice practitioners. As always, thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you next week.
Like what you heard? Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast on whatever platform you're using right now. It really helps us further amplify this work. You can also support us by following us on our social platforms, signing up for our email list, rocking our new merch, joining our Patreon, or signing up for a workshop. So many options! Links to everything in the show notes and on our website, amplifyrj.com. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.